Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Oldish TV. I'm your host. My name is Karen, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here. A special welcome to those of you who may be new to our channel. You can find us here every Wednesday at 12 noon with another brand new show for you. Today, we're going to talk about the community you live in. Now, we've done a lot of talking about the home that you live in and whether or not it is safe and secure to allow you to live the independent lifestyle that you want. We're going to take that same view of the community that you live in. Now, no judgment about this. You have to assess your own community and see what exists there and what you're willing to make compromises on. And also, you have to understand how independent you want to be within that community. Some people are more alone than other people. Some people already live in an area where with a lot going on, and there's really not a lot of need to look too far. They can get where they need to go, they can do the things they need to do, but it's not the case for everybody. So for those of you who are wondering about your community and how you should look at it to assess your ability to stay independent, this show is for you. Let's take a look first of all at the most basic of things: sidewalks. Are there sidewalks? Do they have cracks and heaves? Are they repaired regularly? Does your municipality actually look after them? How about in the winter? For those of you who have winter climates, I certainly do. Are the sidewalks plowed and sanded? And if so, how? Like, I know in my community, for instance, very often the sidewalks will be plowed, but they do the sanding later. And what that means is that when it's plowed, there's this thin little sheet of ice that remains. And I quite often find that it's safer to walk on the road than it is to walk on the sidewalk. Not the best, but that's how my community does it. Your community may do it differently. Is there lighting that is adequate and available from dusk till dawn? That might be something that's important to you if you're coming home from activities or from a friend's place and you need a little bit of extra lighting to see the sidewalk very clearly and make sure that you don't trip and fall. How about green spaces? Is there a green space in your town? Some place to go and sit and enjoy and maybe look at some flower gardens, enjoy some grass, some rivers. Maybe they put on concerts or farmers markets there. That's important to know that there is green space. Equally important, if not more so, is the seating that is available on Main Street and through whatever shopping areas your community may have. Not everybody can walk and shop for a half an hour, or 2 hours without sitting to rest. A good spacing for seating is about every 300 meters. If your community has seating every 300 meters, then good for it. Not every community has that though. So that's an important thing to understand. And if you can walk half a mile, a kilometer, however you measure distance, you would want to know that at the end of your ability to make that walk, there is a place for you to sit down. How about public washrooms? Do they exist? Here in COVID times, it has been very, very challenging to find public washrooms that are open. They just don't exist, actually. And, hopefully that will be going away. But when it's not COVID times, when it's just regular times, we're getting there. We're getting there. Are there public washrooms? Are they clean? Are they safe? Are they accessible? Not everybody can go shopping. Same deal as walking. Not everybody can go shopping and stay out for half an hour or an hour without accessing a washroom. So it's important to know that they are there. How about your lifestyle? Are you able to maintain a healthy lifestyle? Are there recreation programs? Is there a pool in your town? Is there a place to do indoor walking? Is there a place to do seniors exercise like yoga or Tai Chi for balance? Is there a place to socially engage with other people of your age group? Now, here's the kicker. Do all of those things exist in one central location? They don't in my town. They don't. It's very It's very challenging. But I mean, we don't have a pool in my town at all. There used to be, but they closed down because it was owned by a private person. And the town has not sort of picked up the charge from that and moved forward with it. Rec programs are very expensive to run, and I don't believe there are very many of them that run at a break even, much less a profit um, margin on their balance sheets. But most municipalities do subsidize them, and happily so, because it's important for the wellness of their citizens to have all of these things. So, you think of how nice it would be to go to one place and maybe do some aqua exercises, maybe walk on an indoor walking track, then maybe sit down and have a muffin and a coffee with some friends and have a chat. And perhaps after that, you go into some sort of uh, education or social engagement among people of your own age. It's a really lovely prospect for a day or a half a day to be able to do all of these things, but all in the same place so that you're not going hither and thither. And for those of you who have to walk, then you probably are ending up having to choose to do one thing, not all four things. So it's really important to have those recreation programs available to you. How about intergenerational programs? Are they available? Now, intergenerational can be interesting. It can be something that's run by your library where they have older adults reading to elementary school age children. That can also be run at the elementary school. There can be mentors in the high school working in the shop programs and the home economics programs, or coming in as guest speakers or lecturers. There are all kinds of ways to have generations benefit from being together in the same space over a common interest. Do those exist in your community? How about telehealth programs? So that is in the healthcare realm. And if there has been one positive thing about COVID, there haven't been very many, but if there has been one positive thing about COVID, it is that telehealth programs have been more embraced. As doctors' offices have been closed to in person visits, the necessity for telehealth programming has really ramped up. And I know that here in Ontario, where I live, up until gosh, I think about 3 years ago, doctors were not paid by OHIP, which is our health insurance program, for telehealth visits with their patients. But that changed. And now that doctors are paid for those visits with their patients, it has made telehealth a lot easier, but people didn't really embrace it. Why would I do that when I can just walk into the doctor's office? Or as a physician, why would I embrace that when my patients can just come here to me? Well, not everybody wants to sit in a waiting room full of sick people. Not everybody has a car. Not everybody has somebody who can pick them up and bring them if they need to be taken to the doctor's office for an appointment. So, there are lots of reasons why telehealth makes a lot of sense. Not to mention the dead of winter, which we are in right now. And sometimes the roads just aren't safe. In fact, they close, and the winter roads are not necessarily safe for seniors who are maybe a bit nervous about driving to begin with, to be out on. So telehealth makes so much more sense. There are even programs that send iPads. You book a telehealth visit and they will send an iPad loaded with the program to the senior's home, so that it's as easy as can be. They just turn on the iPad and push an app and they're there. Super easy. So that has been a really good thing that has been embraced, but not all communities have embraced telehealth in the same way. Has yours? How about accessibility? Are the public buildings accessible? Are the retail stores and grocery stores accessible? Can you get into them? I think most grocery stores you can get into. Retail stores, that's a whole other ballgame. I live in a community with a lot of older buildings, and when I say older, I mean 100 years old and more. And there are two or three steps to get up into the building. There aren't automatic door openers, so that's a challenge for an older adult who may not have good range of motion, who may use a mobility device. It's a challenge to get into the business to patronize it. So What are your favorite businesses to patronize? This goes to the restaurants as well. Are they accessible? Do they have accessible washrooms? Take a look at the favorite places that you like to be in and find out whether or not they are accessible for you if you should need them to be. Okay. How about an age friendly initiative that advises the municipality? Does your community have that? How about streets? Are they clearly labeled? Can you see where you're going? Can you read the fine print on the street signs? How about embedding accessibility standards into building codes? Now, they're not required to have accessibility standards for residential building. Doesn't mean they can't do it. Does your municipality offer breaks to builders if the builders will build homes with one no step entry or no step showers? You can call them curbless showers and curbless entries or zero access. You call them whatever name you like to call them. But, I feel that municipalities ought to be embracing these kinds of standards to encourage older adults to remain in their communities. Zero entry doesn't benefit just older adults either. Have you ever tried hauling a couch up a bunch of stairs into a room? If you've had teenagers at any point, you've helped them move. And it would be so much easier if the doors were 40 inches wide and there was a no step entry. It works for toddlers. It works for people moving kids into other buildings. It works for older adults. It works for anybody in a wheelchair for any reason. Does your municipality embrace that? If they don't, you might like to ask your member of council about that. How about signage? Is signage in and of itself adequate in size? Is there braille signage? That is part of accessibility. So, you want to be able to understand clearly where you're going when the light is good and when the light is not good. You want to know when a street is one way. You want to know where the stop signs are and that they're not hidden by trees. I mean, there is so much to look at around accessibility in any community. What level of community supports exist? Are there supports for low income people? Are there services to support activities of daily living? So things like snow removal and yard work. Are there services in your community that are intentionally there to support older adults? Because let's face it, as we age, there are some things that we probably shouldn't be doing. Um, and being stubborn doesn't cut it. If you have a heart condition and you're out there shoveling snow, then as well as I do, you shouldn't be doing that. But if there's nobody to come around and do it, that's problematic. Are there services to support minor repairs? For instance, if you need railing stabilized or um, installation of a TV bracket because you want to mount a new TV, is there something like that in your community? Are there handy people who can come and do that sort of thing? Is there a crime prevention strategy that looks at crimes that specifically target older adults? There are a lot of scams out there, and you want to know that somebody's got your back. Are all ages respectfully included in information gathering? So when your municipality puts out a call to solicit opinions on a program that they're considering, or when your hospital board has a subcommittee that is looking at what services should be provided or redoing their website, are people who are older invited to participate in these things so that their opinions and experiences are heard? That would be a good thing. What's the housing situation? Is there affordable housing? You may at some point need to or elect to sell your house and move into an apartment or a condo. Maybe you want to be closer to your adult children. Maybe you want to be closer to shopping. Maybe you have decided to give up your car and you need to be closer to public transit. Is there housing that will help you accomplish those goals? Now, the standard for how much you should pay on an average month for rent is the same as it's always been: 30% of your income before taxes. It's getting harder and harder to find that these days. How about retirement living, housing, long term care, and nursing home care? Does that exist in your community? And if it does exist, is it way off, way outside of town somewhere? They tend to build a lot of those places on agricultural land because it's less expensive than land that is closer to a main street or in a busy area of town. But the busy area of town is exactly where older adults should be. You should be able to walk out your door and walk to a coffee shop to engage with people of your own age and sit down and have a cup of coffee or go to the grocery store yourself without having to wait for some kind of transportation provided by the retirement home. These kinds of facilities that are built way outside of town, and for the most part, they certainly were back in the day, isolate seniors. And the last thing that seniors need to be is isolated. So that's really something to think about. How about employment opportunities? Not every older adult wants to stop working entirely. Some want to continue working full time. Some want to continue or need to continue supplementing their income with some part time work. How about volunteer opportunities? Do they exist? How wonderful is it when older adults can mentor younger people, help them make use of experiences while at the same time keeping their own skill sets up? And again, it speaks to social engagement and the opportunity to be out there and engaging with people around a common interest. That's a very good thing. Now, how about all of those things that we've just talked about when you can no longer drive? If you had to stop driving tomorrow, could you get to that rec program? Could you get to the medical center for an appointment with your doctor or to the hospital if you needed to? Could you get to your hairdressers, your bank, the pharmacy? Could you pick up your prescriptions? Could you get to the coffee shop to have coffee with your friends? What does the picture look like when you can no longer drive your own car? For some people, when they assess their community, they will look at everything through the lens of, well, I can just get into my car. We know from research that people will walk about 1,500 steps before they will think that it's too far. I'm going to get in my car and drive there. And that's if you are able to ambulate well. For people who are unable to walk long distances or much more than a block at a time without sitting down because there's no bench on the street, whatever the circumstance may be, then that brings in another level of difficulty to remaining independent. So, when you assess your community, I would ask you to assess it based on your current status, but I would ask you also to be realistic and look at when you may stop driving. You may not know exactly, but you might have an idea. And if you have that idea of when driving might become too burdensome for you or too dangerous for you and those around you, then assess your community based on what if. What if I don't drive? Now, how independent can I be? What compromises am I willing to make? And you can start making decisions based on that. I've talked about this a lot of times before, but I've made decisions for myself based on exactly that information. Over a year ago, I sold my house because 1,500 steps would get me to a pharmacy, a restaurant, and a sort of five and dime store, a variety store. Would not get me to any grocery store in town. It would get me to my doctor. Wouldn't get me to a grocery store, wouldn't get me to the larger pharmacy, wouldn't get me to rec programs for sure. Couldn't get to my bank. There was a lot of stuff I couldn't do if I could no longer drive. Plus the fact that my home was just too big for me. So I made a choice to sell my house. And now I am going through the process of assessing my community to see whether or not I should stay there. I'm renting where I currently live because that's a good intermediary. But the community assessment piece is something I'm actively doing right now. So it's near and dear to my heart, but I really do feel that it's something everybody should be doing. You always want to make decisions for yourself before something happens and other people start making them for you. That is not ideal. I am fiercely independent and I want to be independent in every aspect of my life. Some of you may be willing to compromise because you have a partner who is, of a different age group and able to maintain their license longer, or you have an adult child nearby, or you have a group of friends and you go and do things together and you figure it all out together. That's not the case for everybody. So that's why this is a no judgment zone. You really need to look at your own life and your own needs and decide for yourself what you're willing to compromise on and what you're not willing to compromise on. And then you take steps to put things in place that make you happy so that the things you don't want to compromise on are things that you don't have to compromise on. It's that simple, really. It is a bit of a process, though. It's a bit of a process, and it's not something where we're always going to get everything that we want, but we can actively work toward getting most of what we want so that we stay healthy and safe and as independent as we want to be. That is it. That is our show for today. I look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday at 12 noon. Until then, please take care of yourselves, take care of one another, and do remember that it takes a village to age a senior. Bye.